He cannot just extend it again, can he? That question, dripping with outrage, has been whispered in countless congressional offices this week, and it perfectly sets the tone for the astonishing storm brewing on Capitol Hill. The heart of the controversy? President Donald Trump's surprising decision to once more push back the nationwide deadline for the hugely popular Chinese-owned social media app, TikTok. In simpler times, few could have envisioned American lawmakers from both major parties simultaneously criticizing a president for not banning something fast enough. But that is exactly the bizarre reality we find ourselves in today. And here's the burning question. How did an application best known for lip-syncing challenges and viral cooking hacks become an urgent topic for national security hawks in Washington? In this deep dive, we will explore the frantic negotiations behind the scenes, the potent concerns about the Chinese Communist Party's potential influence, and the White House's puzzling willingness to grant the app yet another stay of execution. We will also look into why Congress, which once passed a nearly unanimous bill against TikTok, is now grappling with a mixture of annoyance and bewilderment. Get ready, because this story of policy twists, personal interests, and international intrigue is as riveting as any political thriller, and you do not want to miss a moment. For a while, it seemed certain that TikTok was heading for a swift removal from American phones. 2020 was the year that President Donald Trump first declared a national security threat from ByteDance, the Chinese parent company behind TikTok. The administration made stark warnings. Personal data, they said, was in danger of being scooped up by the Chinese Communist Party. Although skeptics argued this sounded more like a political stunt than a legitimate crisis, others pointed to similar claims across Europe. Then came serious action. Congress passed the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act in a landslide vote, effectively banning TikTok unless ByteDance sold the company to a United States-based buyer within a set time frame. People of different party beliefs found common ground in their desire to shield American user data from what they called a powerful adversary, and that is where the drama truly began. In its earliest form, that legislation set the enforcement date to mid-January of 2025, a moment that at first seemed comfortably far away. But the Trump administration ratcheted up the tension, making good on a promise from the president's first term, when he signed an executive order intended to expel TikTok from American soil. Over time, Trump's White House took that framework and turned it into a ticking clock, with each day bringing ByteDance closer to losing any chance of salvaging TikTok's enormous American user base. Then, the president abruptly granted an extension, and then he did it again. Finally, to almost everyone's surprise, he signed yet another extension order, tacking on a full 90 more days to the clock. Astonishment was not limited to outside observers. Senate leaders from both the Democratic and Republican parties exclaimed that these repeated reprieves amounted to a blatant attempt at working around legitimate statutory requirements. Senator Mark Warner, a Democrat from Virginia who serves as vice chairman on the Intelligence Select Committee, was especially scathing in his remarks. "An executive order cannot sidestep the law," he declared bluntly. That stinging comment quickly became the rallying cry for critics on the Hill. The sentiment, echoing through corridors and private phone calls, was that the president was trying to bypass Congress and the law it passed with crushing majorities. Whether or not you agree with Senator Warner, there is no denying the swirl of accusations that the White House has been flouting both the spirit and the letter of established legislation since the Supreme Court, earlier this year, upheld the constitutionality of banning TikTok pending a United States company takeover. But why is all this culminating right now? One likely reason is that the stakes keep rising, especially as the conversation about national security in the digital age intensifies. With more than 170 million users in the United States, TikTok is everywhere, in restaurants, on college campuses, and inside living rooms. In short, it has shaped modern American culture in a remarkably short span of time. Republicans are dead set on ensuring that if ByteDance sells, it must sell to a buyer fully free from the Chinese Communist Party's oversight. Some are convinced that if TikTok's algorithms remain even partially under Beijing's watchful eye, it poses a threat far greater than even the most sophisticated espionage program of the past. Meanwhile, Democrats who originally championed a forceful stance on foreign tech platforms are growing suspicious that the repeated extension orders might be politically motivated. Do these new deadlines reflect a sincere desire to find a buyer capable of addressing national security concerns, Or are they mere stall tactics leading to an eventual surrender? That, dear listener, may be the riddle of our time. Legislation is notoriously difficult to craft, so when top lawmakers from both parties and officials from the Justice Department joined forces last year to create what they saw as an ironclad measure against the infiltration of personal data, they did so with robust language. That measure has withstood early legal challenges, culminating in the Supreme Court's decision to let it stand. The question, as raised by Representative Dan Newhouse, a Republican member of the Chinese Communist Party Select Committee, is, why are we not following through on the ban now that it is the law? He pointed out that American data, right now, could be surreptitiously harvested for anything from marketing campaigns to more sinister intentions. To his dismay, the repeated extensions essentially keep the original ban from taking effect. It is not just Republicans raising eyebrows. Some Democrats have also signaled frustration. A coalition of House Democrats led by Representative Tom Suozzi, Representative Josh Gottheimer, Representative Richie Torres, Representative Seth Moulton, Representative Brad Sherman, and Representative Jim Costa even drafted a letter to President Donald Trump earlier this month. This letter, which quickly spread among staffers, insisted that the president follow the law to the letter. They hammered home the security concerns that initially sparked the legislation. Observers say this letter underscores a crucial point. The fight over TikTok is not a partisan squabble between Democrats and Republicans. It is a nationwide argument over how best to safeguard American technological independence. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, a Republican from South Dakota, added fuel to the debate when he told reporters in no uncertain terms that it all depends on finding a suitable buyer. He expressed strong hopes that ongoing negotiations might bring forth a purchaser with zero ties to the Chinese Communist Party. The darkest scenario, according to Thune, is that ByteDance appears to sell, but retains subtle control over TikTok's precious data or algorithmic processes. Many on Capitol Hill worry that this short-term fix of repeated extensions might lull Americans into complacency. They fear a scenario where the public continues scrolling happily, blissfully unaware of covert data collection by a foreign regime. So, the real question is, when does an app become a Trojan horse? Amid these swirling controversies, Trump, in a curveball no one saw coming, warmed substantially to TikTok during his 2024 presidential campaign. Strikingly, at the same moment he was attacking ByteDance for national security deficiencies, the president spun around and created an official TikTok account with the assistance of his technologically minded son, Barron. That pivot was so abrupt it made heads spin. Campaign strategists noted that Trump's surprising presence on the platform yielded an avalanche of views, especially among the younger demographic. The immediate success might have proved addictive for the White House communications team, which was eager to package Trump's unique brand of populist rhetoric for a generation that demands fast-paced, savvy social media content. This reversal also hints at an overlooked angle. Perhaps Trump realized that banning such a huge cultural force could alienate a large segment of voters. With tens of millions of Americans using TikTok, many of whom are in crucial voting age brackets, standing firm on a total prohibition might risk a severe backlash. That conflict between security concerns and political ambitions is likely no small element in the repeated extension saga. As a result, watchers are now torn between seeing Trump's actions as a strategic masterstroke of campaign cunning or a dangerous disregard for legislative authority. Yet, the tension does not stop with the president's own contradictory feelings. The app's ban might have seemed unstoppable in 2020, but the climate is changing. Americans have grown reliant on TikTok for everything from comedic relief to e-commerce. Companies big and small use it to promote merchandise and services, forging brand loyalty through short videos that explode overnight. At the same time, members of Generation Z, who constitute some of the platform's most prolific content creators, argue that the government's obsession with banning the app signals an out-of-touch approach to digital culture. Are we on the cusp of a broader debate about generational shifts in technology and politics? Very possibly. And that adds yet another layer to an already complex national conversation. If you find this discussion as riveting as I do, then I invite you to stay tuned and share your support. If this deep dive has you intrigued, feel free to tap that like button to let your fellow watchers know that you too are fascinated by the unfolding drama. Let us keep the wheels turning on this engrossing story. Still, the biggest question remains. Exactly who would buy TikTok and under what terms? Foggy rumors have pointed to various big-name tech giants as potential suitors, from major social media behemoths to well-known e-commerce conglomerates. Some see it as the deal of the century, an opportunity to own an application with a massive built-in user population. Others see these negotiations as an unstoppable collision course between antitrust regulators and a new supercorporation that might suddenly dominate social media. By the way, that is precisely why many lawmakers insist that the buyer must satisfy stringent conditions. The objective is to ensure that no foreign oversight body influences the security architecture of TikTok under any new ownership arrangement. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana remains more cautious, stating, "I do not know, I have not done the research," when confronted about the legality of the newest extension. Interestingly, this is an unusual stance, especially considering that Senator Kennedy is known for strong opinions on a wide range of issues. His uncertainty underscores the hasty shift of events and how some lawmakers, quite literally, are learning about new developments at the last minute. The White House's repeated orders have caught many legislators off guard, forcing them to scramble for clarity. That confusion is fueling an environment in which numerous committees are not sure whether to treat the president's approach as a violation of separation of powers or as a legitimate negotiation tactic. Meanwhile, the clock keeps ticking, and TikTok remains fully accessible to tens of millions of American devices. Meanwhile, glimpses of frustration within the executive branch have sprouted, highlighting that not even Trump's administration moves as a perfect unit. Some officials privately complain that the repeated extensions look indecisive, while others see a carefully planned strategy playing out behind closed doors. The gist, according to insiders, is that ByteDance's negotiations with potential buyers might be more complicated than previously expected. If these negotiations do not pan out, the administration could pivot back to a firm ban. But if they do lead to a half-satisfactory deal, Congress might have to reevaluate the entire approach. This, ironically, sets the stage for yet another possible legislative battle in the near future, specifically concerning how to interpret the original ban in the context of partial acquisitions or licensing deals. And let us not forget about the original impetus: national security. Critics like Representative Dan Newhouse and Senator Mark Warner consistently emphasize that Beijing's government has broad legal authority to demand data from Chinese companies. In their eyes, ByteDance remains squarely in the crosshairs of that authority. Even if the app itself promises that user information is stored in data centers outside of China, such reassurances carry only so much weight. Skeptics argue that the real vulnerability lies in the code behind TikTok's recommendation system. This code, they say, reveals personal taste, browsing behavior, and socioeconomic indicators about American users that a skilled data operation could exploit. The fear is not necessarily about random Chinese officials wanting to see dance covers. It is about a sophisticated, large-scale data machine gleaning insights into American social patterns. With each extension, a new wave of uncertainty ripples onto the scene. Will ByteDance sell in time? Will the law eventually be enforced as it is written? Or, as some cynics predict, might Trump continue to push deadlines until the issue becomes moot, overshadowed by other controversies or the next administration? One thing is certain: the cyclical nature of these reprieves has sown doubt among lawmakers who once viewed the ban as a straightforward patriotic victory. Banning TikTok seemed, for a brief historical moment, to be the ultimate unifying cause across parties, representing a rare instance of shared conviction on the Hill. But now that unity reveals stress cracks amid the repeated expansions to ByteDance's timeline, all eyes are on the year 2025, currently the official cutoff for TikTok, as mandated by the set of rules that sprang from bipartisan efforts. That date looms like a distant thundercloud, occasionally overshadowed or brightened by presidential executive orders, but always there on the horizon. The date has even managed to overshadow other parts of the legislation that outline possible penalties for either ByteDance or any prospective buyer failing to meet security guidelines. Meanwhile, ByteDance's lobbyists have picked up the pace, presumably fighting tooth and nail to ensure that lawmakers find reason to push the ultimate ban date further into the future, or, better yet, rewrite the law altogether. The public is similarly divided. Many Americans, especially small business owners who rely on TikTok for advertising their products, wholeheartedly support the extensions. Though few would say they are unconcerned about data privacy, they argue that the potential damage to livelihoods if TikTok vanished might be far worse. Others, including a portion of the national security community, remain staunchly unyielding. They worry that every day the app remains active is another day the Chinese Communist Party can glean crucial data about Americans' political interests, daily habits, or even location information. This tension between commerce and national defense has become a defining feature of modern technology debates, and it stands front and center in the TikTok saga. As with any political saga worth its salt, there is an element of the personal at play. Rumors suggest that Donald Trump's new campaign staffers, particularly those with Gen Z sway, encouraged him to give TikTok a second look. Setting up an official presidential account, they reasoned, was an excellent way to communicate unfiltered messages in a format that younger voters appreciate. They pointed to recent successes of politicians on the platform, who effectively reached audiences that might not often watch cable news or read newspapers. The president saw a communications channel brimming with opportunity. He hopped on to show behind-the-scenes glimpses of his daily life, sometimes poking fun at himself, and other times drumming up tremendous enthusiasm for rallies. The conflicting images, Trump banning TikTok from the Oval Office while filming humorous campaign moments on the very same platform, became instant fodder for social media. People posted parodies, comedic skits, and dramatic voiceovers contrasting the president's condemnation of ByteDance with clips in which he seemed downright jovial about posting content. Analysts say that whichever side of the fence you land on, from a purely political vantage point, it was a shrewd gamble. The attention alone was priceless. Even some longtime Trump critics admitted that the about-face was ironically brilliant, though it carried genuine risk by undermining the seriousness of his arguments about foreign interference. Nevertheless, the ban remains on the books, and the clock is ticking. With each extension, critics from both parties grow louder, more exasperated, and less patient with the White House. Republicans like Representative Dan Newhouse wave the banner of national security, while Democrats stress the importance of upholding constitutional checks and balances. Senator John Thune says that without a buyer meeting strict guidelines, the ban remains the only surefire way to address looming security threats. On top of that is the notion that Americans deserve clarity. Will TikTok be gone by the start of 2025 if no buyer is found, or will we see yet another extension? You can see why many rank-and-file members of Congress feel that they are trapped in a perpetual loop. This entire controversy also raises deeper philosophical questions. At what point does the government have the right to forcefully remove a product from public use if it is perceived to threaten national security? Is it a display of prudent, protective governance, or an overreach that stifles commerce and free expression? Should foreign governments' technological expansions be reined in? Or is that an impossible objective in a globalized era? These are not easy questions. They demand a careful balancing act between technological innovation, the desire for open markets, and the duty to shield citizens from exploitation. And the worldly dimension is just as captivating. China, for its part, has condemned the ban as discriminatory, though engagements between Washington and Beijing already brim with tension regarding issues ranging from trade to human rights. This TikTok dispute is an unexpectedly crucial front in the broader diplomatic chess match. If the ban ultimately goes through, that might set a precedent for other countries similarly suspicious of foreign apps. If the ban collapses, it might indicate that Chinese companies can find ways to reassure Western governments about data usage. For now, the outcome remains in flux. If you are still following closely, you are in the right place. This entire story stands as a testament to how politics, economics, and pop culture can fuse into a single red-hot issue. And if you are hooked on these intricate details and want to keep riding this wave with us, consider tapping the subscribe button to stay informed about future episodes. There is so much more to unearth in the intersection of technology and global power politics, and you will not want to miss the next big revelation. In the meantime, the White House attempts to juggle the ramifications of the repeated extensions, while ByteDance scrambles behind the scenes, perhaps exploring every possible avenue to keep TikTok alive in the United States. Congress is stuck in an odd predicament. The initial wave of triumph at passing a robust bipartisan bill has transitioned into frustration as the ban remains stuck in limbo. For their part, ordinary Americans continue to scour the platform for cooking inspiration, comedic relief, and glimpses of their favorite celebrities, some developing businesses along the way. TikTok, ironically, might be enjoying its best run yet, as the question of whether it will vanish tomorrow only drives more users to share videos while they still can. In the final analysis, the ongoing TikTok conflict underscores how swiftly technology can upset the political order. An app that barely registered in mainstream American culture a few years ago is now a pivot point for constitutional disputes, national security debates, and the personal branding strategies of a former president. For some, it is a sign that we must move quickly to regulate the powerful platforms that have taken root in our devices and shaped our daily routines. For others, it is a clarion call for government restraint and the free market's right to flourish. The only thing we know for sure is that this saga will not end quietly. Sooner or later, the day of reckoning will arrive, forcing a resolution, be it a sale, a ban, or another surprising twist. For now, the countdown continues as Washington, D.C., and the rest of the nation hold their breath for whatever might come next.